Hello, I'm Thomas Carruthers.
And I'm Jay Reef.
Today is something new entirely. Will is on his hiatus. And so I thought, So I started thinking about all the things that Will doesn't like and that we'd never be able to do. And I thought about this man. I'm literally speaking like David Lynch as we start. And I started thinking about this man who lives in my apartment. And he likes David Lynch. And I thought, what if we did 9 episodes in the month of August, all about David Lynch? And I asked him, and he said, yes.
Yes.
So this does start our 9-month, almost complete retrospective. We have removed Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me from our list of Lynch features because I want to do that in the middle of when we properly do Twin Peaks. I feel like I want to talk about Fire Walk with Me after we talk about the proper season 1 and season 2. And
The right way to do.
Yeah. But we are, beyond that, talking about his 9 feature films, 9 of the 10, in chronological order, in the month of August, starting today, on Monday the 2nd of August, with Eraserhead, the film that started it all. Shot over 5 years because you needed to get budget. You needed to get budget, then they lost budget, make the money, rebuild the sets, make the sets again. Lots of his friends. Jack Nance, the lead of this film, was a very close friend. At the time, he was he dating or married to Catherine Coulson?
I think he was married.
Yeah, married to Catherine Coulson, who Twin Peaks fans will know better as the Log Lady. And they just shot for 5 years, intermittently. And to say it was shot over 5 years, I think it's quite incredible that, not that it's a good product, I'm not surprised at that. Well, no, I am a bit surprised at how accomplished it is for a debut film.
Yeah.
But all in all, I'm surprised. What surprises me most is that you wouldn't necessarily guess that it was shot over 5 years.
Very consistent with how it looks.
Yeah, there's a distinct visual consistency, especially when I heard that they tore down the sets and then rebuilt them once they had the money. I was, quite baffled. I mean, they're very abstract sets in their own way, but yeah. And the fact that Jack Nance more or less looks the same.
I know. He kept that hair for 5 years.
I've got in the fun facts, Catherine's the way that she did it. She was the hairdresser, and she sorted out his hair for 5 years. And it's when people talk about David Lynch, they talk about, oh, it's weird, it's experimental, there's no plot.
Yeah.
All of his films do have plots.
Yeah.
This one has a plot, and I think of all of them, this is the one that people say is most abstract. But in many ways, I think Inland Empire is certainly more abstract. I just think people know Eraserhead more.
Yeah, I agree with you. completely there. I could actually describe this film. I don't know if I could describe the plot.
Before we dive into Eraserhead, what's your experience with Lynch? Full stop. Do you remember that? I think we've talked about. I don't know. We filmed these out of order. But what's your relationship? I know your relationship with Lynch now, but where did that start?
Okay, so it started with Twin Peaks, the original 1991 series. It's weird because do you know the game Silent Hill?
I know of the game Silent Hill. Yeah. I'm not a gamer, but I know that has spooky small town vibe and has big influences.
Yeah. I heard that Twin Peaks kind of inspired that, so I wanted to watch that. Well, so I wanted to watch Twin Peaks, which is weird. It's just how I came across it. And then I watched all of it. My parents had seen it. And then I was particularly interested in the last episode because it just seemed such a drastic step up back to quality after the dip when David left.
And certainly a step firmly more into the experimental.
Yes. Yeah.
And in many ways, 25 years apart, but what we were going to get with the return when we eventually got the return.
Yeah. So then I finished the original series, and then I watched. I think I watched Blue Velvet first, and then I watched Mulholland Drive. Blue Velvet I enjoyed, and then Mulholland Drive I loved.
Yeah.
And then I started, and then I didn't really get back to it for a while until maybe about a year and a half before the return started. They hadn't announced that when it was, that it was coming on May 21st, 2017 yet. And I rewatched all of Twin Peaks, and then I watched all of his films in a random order. Actually, I watched Inland Empire, half of it. And then I was like, no. and now I love it, but
Mulholland Drive is definitely my favorite Lynch film, and in my run of articles about best films of the decade, I declared it as the greatest film of the 2000s. However, my famous story with Mulholland Drive is that I only watched the first half for a very long stretch of time because I came into Lynch at a very young age, and I watched all of the first half, and I was like, "Oh, this is incredible! I love this." And then Betty Diane switch, and there's a lot of nudity and masturbation at that point, and that was the point that my dad walked into the living room, and so I turned it off because I wasn't going to get past the argument. I wasn't, no, I'm just enjoying the movie. I'm not watching it because of Naomi Watts' breasts, and then I never got around to watching the second half for some time. So for me, it was not necessarily a happy ending, but just a nice little hour and a half. Oh, what are all these weird scenes? Delightful, but of course, after seeing all of Mulholland Drive, I was going to say it's his masterpiece, but he's made multiple masterpieces. Starting with Eraserhead. Beautiful black and white. And we got that back to that a bit in the return with some of part 8, and it's obviously Elephant Man follows that, which I think is even more gorgeous, black and white. I was watching my boring old DVD. I'm yet to splurge out on the Eraserhead Criterion. I believe you watched the beautiful Blu-ray. How was it?
I did. Oh my god, it was beautiful. I had the old edition UK Blu-ray of Eraserhead.
Yeah.
And then I got the Criterion, and the difference is just
Extraordinary.
Fantastic. Oh my god.
Watching movies on your fucking phone.
Get real.
It's the get real that doesn't save it. It's already won. But get real
on a fucking telephone.
It's true.
Yeah.
I can imagine. I mean, there was a lot of memes when Tenet came out. You know, this is the idea, and also Irishman as well. And I don't understand why people think it's so funny to make fun of these filmmakers who have had to sell their souls to Netflix to get movies made, and them just saying, please just watch it in one night. Please just watch it all at once. There's lots of stuff about Lynch not having chapter selection, which was another reason I didn't get around to watching the second half of Mulholland Drive for a while, because I couldn't just. Oh, wait, why am I picking a picture frame and a vase? What am I supposed to know on the Mulholland Drive Blu-ray and DVD? It's just a picture of Diane's aunt's room, and it's like, is that a vase? Was there a vase in the scene? I can't remember.
Oh god.
And I get it. He wants films to be watched. He wants his films to be experienced in one block. And I do get it on a first watch, I guess. But on rewatches, come on, David, give us chapter selection. Come on, David. Get real.
But the Criterion audio quality, I thought, was much better. I heard things that I've never heard whilst watching it before.
Well, I think that's one of the biggest legacies of Eraserhead.
Yeah.
Is that, I mean, and all of Lynch's career, but I think as a sound piece, Eraserhead's second to none. I mean, that industrial.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ruin this now. I didn't have many Tom's big questions. My one big question was, is this the best subtitles a movie ever has? Here are some examples.
Okay.
Mechanical low fizz. Heavy clank of industrial machines.
Well.
Whining of machinery. Heavy thump. Creaking. Cosmic drone. Indistinct drone. Drone increases. Abrupt silence. And then over the credits, theatre organ plays stride jazz music.
Wow. I mean, there's the return subtitles with
ethereal wooing,
whooshing, curtains whirring.
They are very good. The sound design in this is pitch perfect.
Yes.
So bizarre, and immediately we are zoned. I think when it comes to debut features, people, you know, it's always a plus when they're great, which this one is. But there's something to be said for me about a debut feature that already solidifies the tone and quality of work that we're going to see moving forward. You know, exactly. I think Paul Thomas Anderson's Hard Eight was obviously yanked from him, but in Hard Eight, you can see every movie that comes next. In Reservoir Dogs, you can see every Tarantino movie. Pardon me. And in Eraserhead, you can see the entire Lynch canon in more ways than one.
100%. Especially with the camera techniques he uses, and just the edits. Especially, they're still in Twin Peaks: The Return, like decades later.
And we'll see what shape Wisteria is, whether it's a film, a limited series. We have no idea at current, but it's very, very exciting.
I saw him.
No, go on.
Little side thing. Twin Peaks Productions wasn't Twin Peaks Productions was still involved with it.
All right.
Which,
I mean, if by all accounts, The Return was a very successful and happy production. And by all accounts, there was no, I mean, obviously there's the famous behind the scenes clips about how long a fucking scene should be, you know, all those great clips. And
no room to dream. I could spend forever in the firings.
We could have, you know, there's no time to get dreamy. And you know what I love? A behind the scenes, no bullshit documentary. And The Return had 8 hours of it on that incredible Blu-ray. I've got it here. Just that glorious. Look at that. And just 8 hours of just no bullshit filter. And you know, they're both called David, but beyond that, I think there's a lot more to it. Of David Byrne and David Lynch. David Byrne of the Talking Heads. And on the surface, they are both so pretentious in their media. Like, you look at Talking Heads Stop Making Sense concert, and he's dancing around, and behind him is a projector screen that projects consumerism, supermarkets. And it should be so cringy. And with David Lynch, it should be so pretentious, you know, these experimental, you know, extended sequences of nothing, some might say.
Yeah.
But there is such a sincerity.
Exactly.
To him as a creator, and the characters within. I think people often forget. I mean, less so with Twin Peaks. Half of the things people talk about with Twin Peaks are the characters. But in all of his films, the characters, and yes, the narratives and the plots in a lot of them are just as excellent as the visuals.
Yeah. Especially in Eraserhead as well. Because it's like in the scene with the eraser factory being, my girlfriend was with me for that scene.
How did you find it? Did you drop her in halfway through? It's hard enough to follow from the start.
Yes, I did.
And what did you think of the pencil factory?
She managed to predict that his head would be turned into an eraser. She was like, "That's right, David Lynch, I've beaten you."
There you go, David.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, we skipped YouTube comments.
Oh, okay.
And I'll get to YouTube comments now, because one of them is this. I honestly thought Eraserhead was referring to the main guy's haircut.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have that. This is like an eraser, like, you know.
The deformed baby is downright disturbing. Literal nightmare fuel. Also, damn you. Eraserhead is one of my mum's all-time favourite movies. On an unrelated note, I had an interesting childhood. Eraserhead is like watching your friend's parents fighting. I always interpreted Mary's dad to be a manifestation of American traditional masculine stoicism, taken to the point of psychopathic delusion and a rejection of empathy. I think Henry sees Mary's dad as an example of what he is expected to become. Certainly.
I think this was the first time I was dying with laughter at that scene.
Well, that's another thing, isn't it? People just don't talk often enough about how funny these movies are.
Yeah.
I mean, The Elephant Man isn't as funny. That's a rather sad human drama. But there is such humour in these films.
Even in an Inland Empire.
Even in the mall, in the most abstract.
In this film? Brutal fucking murder.
Huh?
Oh, God.
What was the bit where you were laughing out loud?
When he was talking about his arm, and then he's like, I need to cut this. And then he just immediately turns to Henry, like, do you want to cut the chicken? Like, it's not even like a change of sentence.
You sent me a very funny message last night saying, Meet the Parents has changed a lot since I last saw it. Which I found very funny. Because as much as Meet the Parents is the ideal comedic version of meeting step-parents, in many ways, through its bizarre experimental nature, there is no more apt. I've been very lucky actually with meeting the in-laws. I had nice in-laws in my first relationship, so it wasn't terrifying.
No.
But the dread of that first meeting is no better realized.
No.
Than on a base level, you know, on a base level, the movie is about coming a industrial worker. Well, no, that's not even specified actually. A guy who lives in an industrial wasteland.
Doesn't he say he works as a printer?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So he works as a printer, and he impregnates this woman. And
did you and Mary have sexual intercourse?
Oh, I don't think you should ask that. And they have the baby. They don't even know if it's a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And the baby is this monstrous thing. And he is left with the baby by his girlfriend. She just can't take it, you know.
Yeah.
And eventually he can't take it and he kills it. And then he goes to heaven.
Yes.
Along the way, there are extended dream sequences where he tries to escape the horrors of his real life. And he's like, oh, this is wonderful. And then the horrors of his real life creep into them.
Yeah.
And then in the end, he goes to heaven with the lady in the radiator.
Yeah.
Am I missing anything?
I mean, the woman next door.
Yeah. What's your interpretation of that? Temptation, sexual temptation,
lust, infidelity, or just dissatisfaction, loneliness. I'd say loneliness actually, because he's left with this baby, who he's kind of scared of in the film, I think,
which is understandable.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it would be. And then he just finds this woman. Well, she's next door. You see her once, and then you see her again, and she comes over, and then you see her again right before the end.
Yeah.
And I think he's looking for companionship, and then she sees the baby, and she's kind of freaked out. Yeah. And then there's that bit at the end as well, where she's in the hallway with her other man, and she looks at him, and then he has the baby's face for a head.
Yeah. It's that thing of, I always saw that as she possibly was flirting with him in that first meeting. And it's that thing of, oh, you can't have what you can't want. Sorry, you can't have, you want most what you can't have.
Yeah.
And then she now sees him as the baby. It's that weird thing of, oh, that image of that child, I can never remove you from that image, to the literal point of, I look at you and I see that horrific thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a thing about people who are looking for relationships, and then if the other person has like a child, they're hesitant to go into that because there's a lot of responsibility. So if you're looking at it in the way that you said, you could say it's like that. She just sees the child and doesn't want to be near that at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
rough stuff. Very, you're a Twilight Zone person, as we know. You were on a Christmas special bonanza. Have you seen Perchance to Dream with the cat lady?
Give me a second.
Where the guy, where he's afraid of falling asleep because he'll have a heart attack.
Oh, that's my favorite one.
It's a great one. And perchance, Richard. I think Richard Beaumont. No, sorry, Richard Matheson. Oh, Charles. Oh, shit, I'm terrible. But I write all these fucking articles about the Twilight Zone, and I can't even. I was getting that vibe, that sort of, because loneliness, but also I think the temptation element of I'm now in a marriage or relationship. You know, we like Jack Nance's lead, like Henry, because Jack Nance is such a emotional performer in his face, and humorous.
In the Criterion, you know, the booklet that comes with it. Yes. There's a bit where they talk about how David and Jack Nance would go over the scenes loads and loads, because apparently Jack Nance is really deliberate with how he wants to act. Yeah.
That was maybe one of my favorite parts of the entire return was in part 17, I think.
It's 17.
Was the return to the first image of the first Twin Peaks, and Pete just being able to fish, and then we just carry on, and Laura's gone, and he continues fishing. And I think that image of letting his friend go on forever, and that sort of immortal image of, no, he's fishing now, he's fine. There was no pain in his life, in Pete's life, and because Jack Nance had a very tragic life himself. His second wife hung herself. They tried to help her, but she succumbed to her depression.
And the way he died.
And the way he died was pretty mysterious and bizarre. He said he was in a fight, and he got a big bruise, and it was a bit like Houdini. He was in a fight, and then the day after he had the effects, and he just died from an issue with his brain. Just a tragic end, really.
Sorrow. Yeah. So his last film was Lost Highway, and then there's his deleted scenes from The Missing Pieces that came out in 2014. Fine, what with
me? It's an odd one. But he's obviously great in this. He's great in Blue Velvet. He's great in Twin Peaks. A bit of and it's an odd one because he's an untapped talent beyond the world of Lynch, as so many of these Lynchian figures are.
Yeah, I was thinking about that whilst watching this.
I think if he'd, because he died in 96, so Twin Peaks is early 90s. I think he may have had a bigger career after the boom of Twin Peaks, because Eraserhead was a pretty underground midnight movie for many, many years, released in 77.
A lot of times, I don't know the meaning of the idea, and it drives me crazy. I think we should know the meaning of the idea, and I think about them. And I tell this story about my first feature, Eraserhead. I did not know what these things meant, really meant. And on that particular film, I started reading the Bible, and I'm reading the Bible going along, and suddenly there was a sentence. And I said, forget it, that's this thing. And so I should know the meaning for me. But when things get abstract, it does me no good to say what it is, It's better, all viewers on the surface, we're all different. And we see something, and that's another place where intuition kicks in, and inner knowingness. And so you see a thing, you think about it, you feel it, and you go and you sort of know something inside.
And yeah, I'm going to sort of forego a lot of the formalities of the show this week because it is such an elliptical film. I have a best 10-minute stretch, other than the dinner, which we've touched upon. I don't know if there is a distinct, I guess you could say the pencil factory dream.
Maybe. Wait, yeah, because it goes from the lady in the radiator and then to the pencil factory. Well, which is around 10 minutes.
I'd say the dinner. The dinner is certainly the standout and sets a scene. I instead, let's get into best single minute.
All right.
So we have the opening sex scene, can you call it?
Yeah.
With the baby being created, dropping from space into this pool of water.
Yeah.
Or semen. No, whatever.
Yeah. The guy pulling the...
Yeah.
Right.
The lever, the man on the planet, maybe, I think is what he's down as.
Yeah.
So what are we thinking? Are we thinking that it's a cosmic thing? That this baby has been implanted in Mary by complete cosmic intervention?
I don't know.
Is this a story about Mary and Joseph? What if Mary was impregnated not against her will, but by divine intervention, and then Joseph couldn't take it,
so he killed the baby.
Yeah. What if it wasn't Jesus and it was this monstrous devil thing? It's like a perversion of the Bible in many ways. I then have the lady in the radiator.
Yeah.
A very, very stark and beautiful and deeply unsettling lyric of, "In heaven, everything is fine."
Yeah.
I think, we talk about embodiments of depression and presentations of that, and it always leans into the darkness of it. Yeah. And there is an inherent darkness of it, but people talk about the darkness at the end of the tunnel, and but it's for Lynch to make his embodiment of depression and that terrible, haunting quality of suicide, beckoning people as it does so many times, and having that be not a devilish, dark image, but a light and beautiful one, is so tragic and affecting in its juxtaposition. Very, very, very unsettling. What do you take of it?
Okay, because that was one thing I was thinking about at the end as well, and because obviously Henry ends up dying, but before that he kills the baby, who he's been pretty terrified of. It's laughing at him before he kills it. Yeah. Could you view him killing the baby as him trying to free it and go to heaven as well?
Yeah, definitely.
And end its suffering? Yeah.
Why? Yeah, end the baby's suffering, because it's not healthy. However, we don't see any other babies in this world.
No, we don't.
So maybe this is how all babies are, but also the mother goes, they don't even know if it's a baby.
Yeah. But, well, yeah. I mean, a lot of people kind of think it's sort of a post-apocalyptic film because there's the picture of the nuke on the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just a wasteland.
Yeah, radiated. There's that too.
Yeah, I like that this is maybe the first baby of the apocalypse. And so they have no idea what these babies are going to be. And then this comes out.
Yeah. They don't even know it's a baby.
Yeah, a lot of the imagery is evocative of Lynch's growing up. And he's talked lots about him moving to, I think it was Paris or somewhere, to help with his photography, or I don't know if it was Paris, but some beautiful place, and he was like, "No, I'm not getting any influence. This is too beautiful." And then he came back and he went to those Philadelphia dingy parts that I've been to Philadelphia. I studied in Philadelphia for 4 months, and I've seen it. I mean, it's a far better place now, but yeah, those dark, terrible, overly industrial places.
Yeah.
And yeah, that sort of wasteland aesthetic, just it's terrific here in the film. Which leads us into Tom's weirdly specific favorite part of the film. I love the chicken. Absolutely adore the chicken.
Yeah. When its legs are moving, just bleeding, and then the mother.
If you could have one thing, if you could own one thing from Eraserhead, would it be the chicken, the baby, or Jack Nance's head?
I'd say the chicken.
It would be funny to bring out at dinner parties.
Yeah, that's why. Just set that in the flat.
Yeah, we're gonna do Come Down With Me, and me and Jay are gonna do a Lynchian dinner. They're homemade chickens. What?
Yeah.
Everybody else, oh, I'm doing sea bass.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just regular chickens.
It's just regular chicken. We just have a soft industrial hum in the background. Everybody else plays nice music, and we play disastrous, heavy industry music.
Have you heard David Lynch's industrial soundscape? It's like 10 minutes long.
I haven't heard that. I've listened to some of his I've listened to some of his albums. Clown Time, Big Clown Time,
Crazy Clown Time.
Crazy Clown Time, yeah.
Crazy Clown Time. No, because I used it in a performance that you watched.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, as the background, because yeah.
It's just very evocative. Any weirdly specific favorite parts of this that you really enjoy?
I mean,
I like him washing his feet in a puddle, in a muddy puddle.
It's the end. There's, I mean, all of it's pretty insane.
That end image is rather stark and beautiful, and also it's that stark white, which we really haven't seen in the visual language of the film thus far.
Yeah, it's massive contrast.
And yeah, it just brings home that the beauty of death.
So there's Mary moving her. No, there's Mary's mum moving her grandmother's hands to mix food.
Then lighting her cigarettes as some form of gift.
And then there's the scene where just before that, where Henry arrives and meets the father. He's like, "What do you do, Henry?" And Henry's like, "I'm a printer." And then he's like, "You're a printer?" And then it suddenly gets really tense. And he's like, "Look at my knee!" and the dogs start woofing. It's
certainly a rather stark dinner. Let's move on to best line. Let's move on to best line. I have here, Henry, may I speak to you a minute? Over here, did you and Mary have sexual intercourse? Why?
Why? I love Mary.
Yeah, but you must have felt good. I understand that even during Elephant Man, one story that must have been just so fulfilling. You really admired Stanley Kubrick, one of the great filmmakers of all time. And one of your producers in Elephant Man said that he had met Kubrick, and Kubrick had invited him over to his house to see a movie. And he said, "Oh, I got to show you this movie. It's one of my favorites, Eraserhead." So you found out that Stanley Kubrick thought Eraserhead, once you had finished it, was one of his favorites.
that was a great moment for sure. It wasn't one of his favorites; it was his favorite, and
Okay.
it was the producer and several people that were working with George Lucas. They would come to Elstree Studios to check it out for George to come and shoot there, and they were, met Kubrick, and Kubrick invited him up to his house that night, and he said, "I want to show you my favorite film," and he showed him Eraserhead.
Well, that's impossible. It's only been Mother. They're still not sure it's a baby. Haunting. On one level, quite funny, but on another level, terrible. I mean, it's very evocative of the end of Rosemary's Baby. Its eyes! What have you done with his eyes? He has his father's eyes.
I have straight after that when they go back, and then the father just goes after a moment of silence. The dinner's getting mighty cold.
Yeah, I don't blame him. It looks a nice dinner.
Yeah.
That always annoys me with those big dinner scenes in movies. When they leave the food. It's terrible. I remember having a family argument. This is going to sound very Lynchian. I remember having a family argument, and it was a steak night, and I was very interested. Like, obviously, the argument I should have been invested in, but I just kept thinking, we're wasting good steak. And then we had to have this cold, sopping steak because we couldn't fry it again because it had already been overcooked, and it was like, it was a very stark image. Mary usually does the carving, but tonight, since you're our guest, you could do it. I just cut them up.
Chopping up his arm.
I just cut them up like regular chickens.
Like regular chicken. I've got. Oh, you are sick. After taking the temperature, and then
he's got a lot wrong. He's a lot more than sick.
Yeah.
Which leads us into what's the change? I don't necessarily have any. It's not my favorite. It's nowhere near my favorite Lynch.
Same.
But I wouldn't change any of it. Yeah. I don't know.
I think it's like the preference when it comes to his type of mood, I'd say. I mean, I wouldn't change it because it's distinctly its own film and atmosphere. But
and also, to say it's his first film and it's 1977, there's nothing technical that I would change. Whereas later, there are certain technical things. I think his experimentations with digital cameras in Inland Empire, I think there are technical stuff there that I think take away from the film. But also in this, just it's fantastic. I genuinely this for the story that's being told, the effects are excellent. There's not a single shoddy effect. I mean, bloody hell, that gigantic head.
Yeah, I know.
But also the baby itself. You know, they never talked about how they made the baby, which I love. You know, there's been theories about it being maybe a calf or
a rabbit.
Just a plethora of different things. And you're never going to get to the bottom of it, and I respect that. I never think that there's going to be a point where, like 5 years before he dies, Lynch writes a tell-all autobiography. I don't get that vibe. And I appreciate that. So many filmmakers now. I mean, Darren Aronofsky was the biggest one with Mother, and I enjoyed Mother. But on his press tour, he was talking about, this is what this means, this is what this means. And I thought, no, give it a year, maybe. And yeah, if you want to do that interview where you say, no, I love people bringing their own stuff to it. This is my opinion of it. But not on the press tour. I went into that. Well, my review when I went to see my film teacher, Toby, the day after, I said, I saw 5 movies over the weekend. And he said, oh, right. And I said, I saw a biblical allergy, a very dark comedy, a home invasion movie, and I can't remember the other 2. And they were all Mother.
Yeah. Did you like Mother?
I did. I very much enjoyed Mother. I think it's maybe my favorite Jennifer Lawrence.
Okay.
But I also think it'd be better with somebody else. I love any movie where Michelle Pfeiffer is back. Get Michelle Pfeiffer in everything, apart from Murder on the Orient Express.
Yeah.
What a woman. Anything left from your notes?
No, I just said Mary reminded me of Sandy from Blue Velvet.
Yeah, there is that repeated archetype. That's the word.
Yeah.
Of that all-American, perfect, platinum blonde 50s figure that Lynch, and in many ways, in pop culture and in film, that is the ideal of innocence and perfection.
Yeah.
And Lynch loves to throw that ideal into the most horrific the most horrific things possible.
Yeah, and kind of subvert it with Laura Palmer.
Well, yeah, I mean, for 30 odd hours more of subverting that to great effect. I don't have any other notes. Tagline, a few fun facts. When production on the film took longer than expected, David Lynch had to sleep in the same room used as Henry's bedroom for over a year. Woof. Stanley Kubrick loved this film.
Yeah.
And he made the cast of The Shining watch it, among others, to get the mood for the film that he wanted.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I've got one.
Oh, go.
So David Lynch watched it for the Criterion restoration and said it is his most perfect film, and he's most proud of it.
Yeah. Well, there we go. We're talking about what's to change. Yeah, I might be able to get behind that, it being his most perfect film.
It's his most personal, I think.
Well, yeah. Many speculate. Well, it's not even a speculation. He'd just become a father. Yeah. And so the anxieties and stresses of that are bounding about in his very experimental mind. And this is the product of that. David Lynch has offered cryptic comments on the baby prop, at times stating that it was born nearby or that maybe it was found.
I love him so much.
The film was created in a piecemeal fashion over 5 years, with many sets rebuilt after being torn down to make way for other work. Through all 5 years, Jack Nance's only request as far as comfort or entertainment went, "I want a room and a chair." And he kept his hair in the same frizzy style the whole time. The sparse, drawn-out shooting schedule is revealed when at one point Henry opens a door and Nance ages 18 months between two cuts. 2 years in, cinematographer Herbert Cardwell died in his sleep at 35. And after 4 weeks of searching, Frederick Elmas was chosen to take his place.
Oh.
After a poorly received test screening, David Lynch believes he had mixed the soundtrack too high a volume. And he also cut 20 minutes of footage from the film, which has never made its way to any DVD or anything. These include Catherine Coulson as the infant's midwife, a scene of a man torturing 2 women, one of them once again being played by Catherine Coulson.
Yeah, there's a picture of that in the booklet, in the Criterion.
And one of Henry toying with a dead cat.
Of course.
The script was originally 22 pages long, so he had struggled for people funding it because they thought it was a short film.
Yeah.
The Pixies, Where Is My Mind's Own, frequently perform in heaven at their gigs.
Oh, really?
And the enlarged baby's head was made by David Lynch and Jack Nance, and it was made in, there we are, for our audio listeners, that Jay just showed us a picture. It was made in Lynch's backyard, where it was clearly visible to the neighbours, and they called it That Big Egg. Delightful. Which leads us into tagline rundown.
Be warned, the nightmare has not gone away.
And that is often exchanged with warning, the nightmare has not gone away. In heaven, everything is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Where your nightmares end. And a dream of dark and troubling things.
Yeah, I think I've seen that one.
Yeah, and I don't really have Tom's big question. I think all in all, we've introduced what we're going to be doing this month. We've talked about Eraserhead. Is there anything left for you that you want to say, Jay, about Eraserhead before we move on to The Elephant Man next episode?
No. No.
Yeah,
it's great.
It's a great film, and it's a perfect introduction. Maybe not for a first-time viewer of Lynch, but it's a perfect introduction into the world of Lynch that we love so dearly. Jay, it's been a pleasure. The Elephant Man is next. Oh, no!
That'll be my first time.
It is your first time with The Elephant Man, yes.
Yeah.
My Lynch holes are Dune, and it was The Straight Story.
Me too.
But you've got The Elephant Man. I look very much forward to what you think of it. And we will see you then.
Da ba da ba da ba da da.